The gods were stirring up the ocean in order to extract the elixir of immortality. The fluid surging from the water turned out to be a poison, and Shiva sacrificed itself and drank it to save the others. While becoming sick and thirsty, he walked to the Langtang range in the Himalaya. He thrust his trident into the mountain, and 3 springs gushed forth and created the sacred lake of Gosenkund. He drank the sacred water and recovered. Every year, during the monsoon season, Buddhists, Burns, Hindus and shamans come here to celebrate rituals of purification and rebirth. Langtang is the land of the Tamangs, a people who have lived for centuries in a territory that rises 8,000 meters above the jungle. In the past, the destiny of this world was in the hands of the gods. Today, it may lie in the hands of the big actors of globalization. But the gods are still watching. Samsung is a Tamang seeking fortune in Kathmandu, the capital of Nepal. He just got his much-desired rickshaw license. Today he's happy because he's going to travel with us to his native land. Like other young men, he left his village in the mountains of Langtang to find a job in the city. Migration is often the only way to bring some cash back home. Used to carrying all their possessions across passes more than 5,000 meters high, Tamangs are known for their physical strength, and they are exploited in the city as hard laborers. Kathmandu is mostly a Hindu city, and Tamangs, Buddhist and illiterate, are often regarded as outcasts, fit only for the lowest jobs. For them, as well for many Nepali, the future is an uphill battle. While the men work in the cities, back in the mountains most of the work is done by women and children. They live in extreme poverty, but in spite of it, their deep knowledge of the forests and animals enables them to survive. This simple soup, made with butter, milk, salt and nettle grass, is highly nourishing. It will allow them to face the harsh winter, which is just beginning. Tamangs used to be proud of their origins. One legends tell how a Tibetan cavalry regiment crossed the high passes of the Himalayas and settled in Langtang and Helambu. Tamang means people of the horses. Today, young Tamangs, especially in the cities, tend to hide their origins, fearing discrimination. A few days' walk from the Kathmandu Valley, after crossing the entire Helambu, we are finally within sight of one of the 3 ways into the Langtang, the Laurebinala. During the monsoon season, thousands of pilgrims of every religion cross this 4,600-meter pass on their way to the sacred lake of Gosenkund. They come here to cleanse themselves and to consult with monks, priests and shamans. Then they get to a small sacred lingam, the symbol of Shiva, to receive the god's blessing. This sacred object is easily found among the rocks because it's decorated with long strings of Buddhist prayer flags. Once at the sacred lake, all the pilgrims walk around in an ancient ritual called the Kora. From here, they begin the descent into the Langtang Valley. Is a typical Tamang village. In the past, caravans crossing from Tibet and directed to India gave to this village some wealth. In 1955, Chinese sealed their borders. By doing so, they isolated Tamangs from the Tibetan world. Today, most men of working age are forced to migrate. These monks are doing a puja, a sacred ritual, to purify the Gomba, the temple, in preparation for a funeral. A young father who emigrated to Malaysia has died in the factory where he worked. His body will be brought back to the village, so the monks can accompany his soul on a voyage of several days through the kingdom of the dead. During the 80s and 90s, hikers and climbers, attracted by the beauties of this region, brought some well-being back to the village. But those years of hope and revival were cut short by a terrible event. In 2001, the royal family was massacred and the autocratic king Gyanendra came to power. The new king's dictatorial regime stirred up the latent civil war, convincing tourists that Nepal was not a peaceful country. Under the Bush administration, State Department warnings kept many American travelers, traditionally the most numerous, away. Tamang confidence in their own tradition has been shaken by these dramatic events that originate so far away. Like many other people of Tibetan origin, the Tamangs too place their hopes in a return of the hikers and in the voice of the Dalai Lama, who lives and speaks for them in that distant, powerful world. In early winter, threshing millet is a typical woman's activity. Millet flour is used to make tsampa, the traditional Tibetan bread. In the meanwhile, men plug the fields. In this season, the water mills work all day long to produce enough flour to last through the winter, when food will be scarce. The poorest families live in huts called goth. They are in charge of the herds of goats and yaks grazing in pasture above 5,000 meters. Traditionally, the hard labor of herding falls to the youngest brother in the family. Together with his wife and his children, he spends most of his life in the mountain wilderness. Often he is also a bombo, a shaman, who in collaboration with the monks takes care of the health of the living and the dead. The shepherd is the true master of the forests and pastures, knowing all their secrets. Ploughing is a very hard task, traditionally assigned to young men. Unfortunately, today the stronger men have migrated. Now the elders have to do it instead of spending their time meditating and praying. Samson offers to help, making the elders laugh at his clumsiness. The work in the fields moved to the rhythm of the Gomba sacred drum. While in the field people are working and joking, bad news reaches the village. The young man who died in Malaysia had been kept in the factory as a slave. His bosses will not return his passport or money. The family will not receive any compensation. Now everyone agrees he reincarnates into a better life. We are back on the trail, moving higher into the Langtang Valley. These new bridges were built with UN money in the 90s to bring hikers and mountain climbers back to the region. The thick jungle in the lower valley, protected by the national park, conceals a great variety of animals. Locals even claim that tigers sometimes roam around the villages, preying on their cattle. At higher altitudes lives the snow leopard, thanks to the abundance of its preferred prey, the barhal, a big wild goat. But for the locals, the only dangerous predator for their yaks is a sort of yeti called nyalmu. Many wild horses live in this valley, was thought to confirm the ancient legend of the Tamang's origins. Beyond the jungle, above 3,500 meters, lie the small but splendid Gomba of Langtang. My very religious Sherpani friend is praying. The beauty of the ancient Gomba is equal only to the sadness of its decay. Surely the renovation of this masterpiece, which the local Lama says is 500 years old, would reduce immigration, bring back the hikers, and revive the spark of Tamang self-esteem. The paintings are impressive, mixing a whole range of feelings. Alongside the peaceful majesty of the Buddha are the terrifying images of divinities such as the scary embrace of Troma. And the sensual embrace of Vajrasattva. The villages and the environment now look more similar to Tibet. Yak pastures are replacing the forest. Long walls called mani line the path. They are made out of 1,000 stones carved with mantras or prayers, and they are always to be kept on one's right hand. Mundu is the poorest village of the valley, mostly inhabited by children and elders. Although it's only a few yards away from the main path, no hikers ever come this way. The inside of the houses reveal a past wealth in the shape of finely carved windows and furniture.
This is for the water.
Every Buddhist home has its own altar. Images of Buddha, Milarepa, Guru Rinpoche, the Dalai Lama are surrounded by yak butter lamps, food offerings and katas as the ritual scarves. This old lady is cooking tsampa. Here, resources are scarce and malnutrition is chronic, especially by the end of winter. This family tries to get by with a yak, 2 goats and a potato field. The little cash the man of the house makes in Kathmandu doesn't even pay for their debts with the local landlord. The Ganjan Po is a splendid mountain worshipped as a divinity. Some locals think its peak is the abode of the gods of Langtang. Here we are in the highest part of the valley. At the mountain's feet, the few inhabitants share scarce resources with the Kyanjin monks and hikers like us. In the pasture of Kyanjin, a yak welcomes the sunrise after spending the night at Manestan. Kyanjin Gomba is a hermitage where monks spend 3 to 7 months in meditation, wearing cotton clothes and slippers. We asked them to perform a puja for our next climb. Their kindness was very touching. prominent landscape features have a special spiritual aura and thus are considered to be ideal spots for prayer flags. Sergoi, a 5,000 meters peak, is a perfect example. Each flag is impressed with prayers, which the wind will bring to the gods. Lungta, the wind horse, is often pictured along with the prayers. The downwind side of the peak is warm enough to take a nap. It's our last nap in the sun for a while. City-dwelling Nepalis often shield their faces from the sun because dark skin is looked down on by higher castes. Nyakanga, 5,845 meters, is just in front of us. From here, the route seems much steeper than we thought. This is the first week of sun in months. If the weather holds, we'll make the summit Alpine Star. Tianjin looks quite far. The view toward the Jugal North from base camp is breathtaking. We are surprised by the sunset. Half of the sky is pink. The other half is blue. Winter has begun. Only melted ice will be our source of water for the next few days. In spite of the heat, we slept well, thanks to our gradual approach to acclimatization. Two of us set off from the advanced base camp, Pemba, my Sherpani friend, and I. The mountains here are gigantic. The snow is treacherously powdery.
Hello, we are the summit.
The view from the summit is magnificent. The whole Langtang Himal surrounds us. Beyond it are the peak of the Jugal Himal. Further we can see the Gauri Shankar and the Rowaling Himal. Or the view goes as far as Mount Everest. Shishapama, the nearest 8,000-meter peak, appear to be really close. The rocky path through the Ganjala is frozen. We have to help our porters cross to the other side of the pass and find a place to camp before sunset.
Now only down, down, down. Yes, easily. Down it's very easily. अस्ति पनि त्यही हो नि त मलाई तल बिना गर्मी हुने साथ त म त हिँड्नै सक्दैन नि यो चल्दै चल्दैन नि सर्लक्क फुकालेको फुट 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 चल्यो नि
A jeep is waiting for us a 6-day walk south of here, 4,000 meters below. We are the first people to cross the pass in this season. None of us is familiar with this side of the mountain. Just in time. If these clouds had reached us while we were still on the Ganja Pass, we would have been in trouble. We have to cover as much ground as possible to avoid being trapped in the next snowy passes. I wonder how the Khenjin monks will make it back to their monasteries. Winter has begun. In the next few weeks, the snow will make this path avalanche-prone and very dangerous, impassable for mountaineers, but maybe not for monks in slippers. Samsung has made a fire out of dried incense branches. The cold is terrible, but our morale is high. The danger is past. The Tamang gods of Langtang have escorted us to safety. We have lived with a people who are struggling against poverty, but who are reaching culture. A smiling people who draw their hope for the future from the fertile well of their traditions, but also from the presence of hikers and mountaineers who can appreciate their culture and their word, a word that deserves not to be forgotten.